EEOG. The first thing is, we explain why it is the case that even if you're unable to change the implementation of this technology, that adding research to this field means that you are better able to find ways to understand this technology and perhaps restrain its worst excess in the long run. Remember, the comparative is not this becomes developed versus this doesn't become developed. You believe that it becomes developed either way, and the marginal add that you have that way be able to direct things by talking to your colleagues and training culture in small ways is important. But number two, I just want to stress again how important a sense of purpose and opportunity is for the average human being. The idea that this is an incredibly important thing and you're being asked to work on this project means that you believe that this is a genuine once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to work on something that's much greater than yourself. Not only is this more important than Kant, it's more important than your family, your immediate happiness, and something that motivates you to take any amount of discomfort or even threat to life and live if a ditch is able to pull off a miracle. Vote CG.
Opposition whip to close out the debate. Here, here.
Is this good quality? Great. Before I begin, also some small things. My first BP tournament was the HWS IB, so it is very nice to be back here. Eric, thank you for being there all throughout. Danny, thank you for running the tournament. Tab, CAs, thank you guys all. I have been very lucky to go to the HWS Red Open a few times. So Tejal, Mish, Asher, Hamza, thank you so much. Thank you to all my friends at Harvard and now to the Chicago Debate Society. It has been very excellent to see friends, people I've met in 2017, and people that I met recently. It's nice to see the future of debate. I'm very privileged to have coached Amika and Ollie, and it's good to see you guys here. And lastly, thank you to my currently adopted team, Sydney, and most of all, Ellie. Thank you for making this happen. I want to explain the implication of the first part of the extension and why that just wins the round. You are told that someone else exists with no reservations. The two implications that Ali points out are very simple. This is the oldest trick in the book. The government is getting you to do something you don't want to do by saying someone else will. Or this is the truth, in which case, why is the government hiring that person in the first place? Given they know you have reservations, the only reason for hiring you is because you must be significantly more talented than any other candidates. Tejas, to their credit, at the DLO says, quote unquote, they want to hire you, and that is why they lie to you. But they never go further than that. The implication of why they would hire you if there were other candidates, the implication of why they would hire you if there weren't any other candidates is simple. You are either the only real candidate, or you are meaningfully better than any other candidate. And I actually think closing government loses the round because that's the first thing XK says, and they agree with us. They're like, oh, you must be so much better even if you don't have reservations. Congratulations, if you can identify something that the guy in charge of chemical weapons also does, presumably that is the entire point. You aren't going to be able to slow down chemical weapons meaningfully because even if you do, and even if they know that, you are far better at doing it than any other candidate. The POI that opening government gives is a little crazy, but it also doesn't matter, because if the government official apparently wants to slow development, they can still do so. Like, they're not going to be like, oh, like, I want to slow development, but the scientist is so sick. Like, the government official can obviously slow development themselves. Come on, it's realistic to assume they want fast development. They're developing a secret fucking chemical weapons program. Obviously they want fast development. So the implication is damning. And I want to be clear here. Closing government loses the round because their claim on scarcity proves our extension correct. That is to say, if it is true that there are so few people that can do this, that they have to rely on random fucking people that hate nuclear weapons or hate chemical weapons, then obviously in the absence of you doing this, there is no one else to do it. The government wants you because they need you. That is what comes meaningfully over opening opposition. The second thing I want to say then is on assassinations. I just want to be clear here. The response is at closing government that, it's like a small percentage of people that are nuclear scientists, so maybe they don't get assassinated, or we just don't see them like around the streets because they're so small, or that it's a time and place specifications. Like, come on, these are just so uncharitable. India, like we killed their nuclear scientists in the 1960s and the 1970s. Pakistan, we killed those guys. Germ warfare scientists in China, we killed those guys. Iranian nuclear scientists, we killed those guys. North Koreans, Syrian chemical weapons engineers, we killed those guys too. And I think the problem here is we want to kill these people because we do not want weapons of mass destruction floating around. Their responses that are like, it's assassination. Like, yes, we do this all the fucking time. I do not know why. That is an actual response. I'm happy to engage in closing or opening here. You know what? Yeah, go on.
Even if you somehow cannot actually slow down weapons development, you believe that you can. If Kelly truly cares about the morality of her actions, how will she live with herself knowing that she can?
If we can figure this out in 45 minutes, presumably you had a little bit more time to think about this, and you can also figure this out. Like, guys, this is how all job offers work. They're like, there's a better candidate, they're really, really good. So if you don't accept, then we're going to give them the job. Like, obviously you're smart enough to figure this out. If you're smart enough to design a chemical weapons program.
You're realizing the government's thinking that you're the one that's going to slow it down, but the info slide never says that. Our case works even if you're the best scientist, because we show that good science
Who is this mysterious they on their side? Like, I don't get it. DPM also said it's the government. Like, we're just gonna cop it. Like, come on, don't knife your opening like that. Closing government, 6 responses, they're dead in the water. 1 on regulation. This is a crazy argument. It presumes you know these, like, essence and the nuance of international regulation, but more importantly, it presumes that the government officials don't. It presumes that what you do is you slow down exactly the things that you can make scientific arguments for, but that are likely to be regulated by the international community. What happens if I go to my boss and I'm like, I want to do this thing, and here's a scientific argument for it, and they're like, well, I actually know international regulation, that's going to be lobbied against, so like obviously do something else. Like, that is what happens on their side of the house. Second, scarcity proves that you are essential. Obviously, you might be able to slow it down on their side. It won't happen on our side. Third, it is unlikely for the government to let you testify in a way that meaningfully damages the program, like use some sense. Fourth, you cannot leave. And I want to be clear here, the reason why I think closing government does not understand the extension is because they conflate 2 things. There are 2 types of risks that you face on your side of the house. 1, the risk from other governments. The United States wanting to kill rogue actors, Israel wanting to kill Iranian nuclear scientists. 2 is the risk that at the point where you've accumulated so much information about the program that you leaving is a meaningful threat to the government. E.g., they do not want you defecting, they do not want you leaving the program. So that is where you face the other risk. Like, this extension is not like you distrust the government and that sort of stuff is bad. The extension is, after 30 years, they don't give you like a thank you chip and a watch and a pat on the back. They fucking shoot you so you don't tell everyone how the nuclear weapons are getting made or where the facilities are, because otherwise you could bomb them. So I just think, like, that's the argument of, you can't leave, you're not going to go into some cushy private sector job. Like, Fei Li, an artificial intelligence scientist, come on, that's not a realistic depiction of an actual threat. Like, any person who tries to leave who is actually dangerous, you kill him. The 5th response that I think Ellie points out is you get suckered into it, so you're not likely to want to slow things down. Especially, and I want to be clear here, the biggest tension in the government bench is very simple. I do not think that you can both rationalize and use the coping mechanisms of opening and closing government, while at the same time meaningfully wanting to slow down weapons development. That is to say, you are unlikely to be able to be like, this job is sick because I get $300 omakase dinners from my husband, and also be like, but chemical weapons are really bad, so I shouldn't do a good thing. Like, obviously, if you make yourself comforted in the vestiges of religion and the vestiges of nice life, you are going to be rationalized into doing things. I think opening opposition says that, but that's why both of those teams are out. And the last thing to say here is just like, I think you cannot rise up the ranks of their bureaucracy in the event that you are meaningfully bad at your job or slow at your job. I've proven to you exactly why it's the case, that it is something that is verifiable. E.g., if you keep pushing back against, I don't know if I took a PY. Did I take a PY for Mochi? Oh, then never mind. So, come on, he hasn't finished me. Opening government. Opening government gives you that there are sorry, let's talk about opening opposition. The opening opposition and opening government claims are essentially 2 sides of you violate others by participating in the action or not, you violate yourself by participating in the action or not, and the psychological break of the family. I think the way that we interact in the top half debate is threefold. 1, we're the only team that actually proves to you a meaningful difference in how the weapons program operates. That is to say, it does not matter if opening government says you can slow down the weapon stuff. We've given you plenty of analysis to suggest that is next to impossible if you are not actively a part of it. They don't get this. Stop nodding. You said one line where it was very good. The second thing to say is I just think we go far further in proving to you why then there is a meaningful difference. That is to say, at best, at the the end of opening opposition, you are left with something along the lines that is just like, at the end of it, yes, we are participating in it, and that is the thing that is bad. It is not that we make it meaningfully worse. We're the only ones that prove to you the weapons do get worse, they are much more likely to use, all of these things are much, much worse. The last thing to say here is, I think that the high burden that opening government force upon themselves ensures cognitive dissonance doesn't make sense. Cognitive dissonance doesn't mean you smooth your concerns over forever. It means that at some point you might have conflicts. And what Ivy proves to you is that when that happens, it is much harder to leave. They are likely to hurt you. They are likely to hunt you down. We win.
All right, one more round of applause for everyone who participated.